Hey, Coach.
How we doing?
Doing well, thank you. Hope you are.
Great.
We'll begin with Mike Barber. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Coach. Greetings from back home in Richmond.
Always good to hear from the homeland, Mike.
Absolutely. Hey, I wanted to ask, Mac mentioned a few times in his comments about feeling like Virginia had essentially out-toughed you guys in previous meetings. As a coach, how do you translate that message into practice? Do you challenge the guys or how do you use that kind of opinion there?
Yeah, I mean, we're first of all, we're gonna watch the film from last year, right? And they blocked us, and so I think and I got a lot of respect for Coach Mendenhall and his staff, but this game eventually always comes down to one, like whipping blocks, right? Like you either get blocked, you don't, or you get off blocks, and so they did a good job last year with giving us some different stuff. They're really creative on offense, and we've got to give our kids the best chance to get lined up and be physical and not be worried about other things, but they, yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be, I think when we're done Saturday night, the team that wins is the team usually that blocks and tackles best.
And along those lines, Bronco was pretty candid this week that with a developmental program that he tries to put a lot of stuff on video for opposing defensive coaches, basically to essentially waste some of your time this week working on a lot of different things. What is the challenge of picking what to work on?
So I think what you try to do is you try to look at, say, okay, we've had problems with these things before on defense, and how does that fit with how they attack us? You try to self-scout yourself a little bit, and then I think obviously it's going to make you have to try to do less things, right? So and I think that's what they do is they force people to start. You look at Illinois, and Illinois quickly got into one call, and now most. They got Virginia's got really good players. They know exactly what call you're in. They can run really good plays. So I think that's going to be a part of it too.
Great. Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, when we talked to Miles Murphy during fall camp, he told us that he's increased his squat by almost 200 pounds from last year. Through 2 games, have you seen a difference in him in that he's been able to increase the squat? And what did you see from him the other night that was different from a year ago that made him so effective?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know the exact numbers, Andrew, but he weighs about the same that he weighed when he got here, right? Like he's like 295 to 300, depending on what we had for lunch today, right? So, but I think, his bench press has gone up 200 pounds and his squat's gone up 200 pounds, and I think that's a tribute to, Brian Hess and Dean and AJ and, Big John down in the weight room and the work Miles has put in. He's totally changed his body. So I think what we see with him now is a couple of things, right? Number one, he's worked really, really hard to learn the defense and not make, last year we put Miles in, we were rolling the dice sometimes, right? Whether he was going to quite do what we want him to do. Now I feel very confident in him, and he's become one of our better players. So I see a kid who I think has got a really bright future, who's playing really well for us, and and I think is getting to a situation where we can play him more and more every week, and I think you'll start to see that too.
Cedric Gray got in a couple series in the first half the other night. What did you like that you saw from him?
I think Cedric's a really good player. We wanted to play him against Virginia Tech more, and just the way the game kind of settled down. But I think he's, the thing about Cedric is, when you look at our linebacker room, and I think we've done a really, Tommy's done a good job with those guys, recruiting them, and they're all pretty similar, right? They all look the same. They're all really fast. They're all about 220 pounds, right? That's kind of who we want. But Cedric is the one kid who's longer. He looks like he could play for Javon, and so I think what's said in there, it gives us a little bit bigger body in there, some. And I think you're going to see him play more and more every week, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, over to Greg Barnes.
Good morning, Jay. Bronco said a few times this offseason he thought this offense of his could be the best that he's had in Charlottesville. I know they got a lot of guys coming back, but has that offense changed much from what you've seen the first 2 games, or are they just doing what they know how to do?
Yeah, so I think they're throwing it better, for sure. I think they're a little more talented outside, at receiver than I remember them. The tight end, the transfer tight end, I think is a really, really good player. But I think on offense, when you got a veteran O-line that's physical and does a good job, and I think they do, and then you got a quarterback who I think is a tremendous player who can do everything. I think that's a pretty good way to start, right? And then I think they run a lot of crazy stuff, Greg. So I think they I think they got a good plan. And we're gonna have to play really, really well to have a chance.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, CL Brown, go ahead.
Hey, Jay, in these first two games, you guys have played a lot of players in the depth chart, and I was wondering if just how you've evaluated that so far, if you feel like that you've been able to get into a rhythm kind of in terms of the situations that you put them in, whether you're having somebody kind of specialize in that kind of stuff, or is that still something that you and the staff are still kind of working out?
That's a great question. I mean, so we absolutely have some kids that have fallen into a role of being a special situation guy, like on Saturday, we put it in the summer with the thought that we'd have three corners out there. And then, Storm's been a little banged up, but, with 6 DBs on the field, that was kind of something we felt like last year we didn't have enough of. So, and I think they converted one time on us. So that's pretty good. Clyde Pender is going in on third downs as a pass rush guy and doing a good job. So, I think there's a lot of guys, and frankly, I think Cedric Gray is in that mix a little bit too. Like we're bringing Cedric in to run some calls that maybe he's better at than Eugene, or vice versa. So there's definitely some kids that have fell into a role where they're more specialized. But I think we tell our kids, hey, if you show us that you can play with great effort and you know what you're doing and there's not much of a difference between 1 and 2, we're going to play you. And I think what happens is, your morale's better. Coach Brown says all the time, right? Your morale starts from the bottom up, right? It's easy for Jeremiah Gilmore to have great morale. I think when the backup Mike's playing and the backup Will's playing and the backup Bandit safety's playing, I think you start to get more of a buy-in from and you create more, depth in your defense. So, I think the biggest place we're playing more is D-line. And I think that, that's a position you have to play as many players as you can, I think, just because of the physical nature of the position. So I think it's a little bit of both, but I'm very happy that we're able to play more guys for sure.
Thank you.
Ross Martin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Bateman, got some defensive back questions for you. Obviously, Dede Holland's out for the season. Can you comment to kind of what that means for your defense and the depth of that cornerback room and him as a person?
Yeah, it's you hate to see a kid get hurt, but that's a kid who I got a lot of. And I love that kid. When the improvement he's made, he has really become a good player and a great teammate. He's smart. So losing him hurts. At corner, we feel like we've got depth. I do think Storm's getting close to being back. It wouldn't shock me if he's ready to play Saturday. So, I think Obi Egbuna has played really well when we've asked him to play. So I think losing Dede hurts because he's a good player, but I don't know how much that's going to affect our depth as much. It'll probably, hopefully, Obi and Storm will be able to take some of those reps that Dede was taking.
And it seems like Kylie Michael's playing really well, especially tackling TFLs. What have you seen from him? Maybe an improvement from last season to this season?
I think he's more comfortable with the defense. Last year, you got to think about, like, this is a kid who's a really highly recruited kid, and then he transfers and has to sit out. Then he doesn't have spring practice. So like there was a stretch there where he didn't really get to play much, So and I really felt like at the end of the season he was playing at a high level. So, I agree with you. I think Kyler is playing really well, and he's a guy we can lean on.
And Ja'Coris Conley came back with the cast on his left hand. He came back and played. So, how does that affect him? Have you had a player play with that kind of cast injury at safety, where I guess using your hands and tackling is pretty important?
Yeah, he obviously did it early in the game. And he came back, and Luke and our trainer, Luke Ross, our trainers, did a great job getting him kind of up to speed. And I said, look, I'm going to put you back in, even though the game was out of hand a little bit. I said, I want you to get used to playing with it a little bit and see what you think. And he's got to use it a little bit better. But I also think, I don't know if he'll be quite as clubbed up as he was during the game for this next one. So I think he'll be able to use it a little more than he could, during the game. But obviously, the further back from the ball you get, the harder it is to play with a club. It's hard to play defense with only one hand anyway. So, he's going to have to, change some things, but he's still a really good player, and we're pretty confident he'll be able to get it done.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Gregory Hall.
AJ, with the emphasis that y'all put on pass rush, are you disappointed with the, I guess, lack of through 2 games, or what do you want to see out of that for guys to get into the backfield more often?
Greg, not really. With Virginia Tech, we knew early on we didn't pressure much. Because we kind of wanted to see kind of how that game was going to play out. I felt like a year ago when we pressured him, he got out on us a lot, and I felt like he was more dangerous at that than he was throwing it, and he still got out on us. So I probably should have pressured. But and then against Georgia State, with what they were doing on offense, we didn't rush guys much. It was just kind of with the nature of what they were doing, and honestly, we felt like we could cover them. We felt like coverage was the answer a little bit. So we didn't create a lot, and also I think you watch Georgia State, the ball was coming out fast a lot. So I think that's that. But I think, we have some guys that can rush the passer that I think as we start playing teams that give us more and more opportunities to do that, I think you'll start to see more pressure.
All right. Our last question for Coach will come from Adam Smith.
The
Hey,
best
Jay.
for last. Save the best for last, Adam.
You're so flattering. I love it. You're talking about Virginia maybe being a little more talented at wideout, and maybe being a little more talented at tight end. What have you seen from the quarterback position with Brennan Armstrong? Like, he obviously gave you guys fits last year. He's on fire right now. Have you seen, through 2 games, has he added more to his game from what you remember from last season?
So, I was watching the game, their Illinois game before our game on Saturday, and Coach Mendenhall, they had an interview with him, and he said this, and this is kind of what I've thought about him for a year now. It's like, I think probably growing up when you played pickup basketball or backyard football or whatever sport you wanted to play, right? Probably if you picked him, your team was going to win, right? I think he's kind of that kind of guy. So, I think he's a really competitive kid. I think he does everything really well. The thing I see from him now versus when we played him a year ago is I do feel like he's got a really complete grasp of where the ball should go in the throw game. Where I felt like last year there were a couple of times that the coverage, we were able to kind of tilt the coverage a little bit, and maybe he didn't see it as much as he does now. So I think there's that. But look, he's a tremendous player. They do a great. They run him, they throw it to him. They do a lot with him, and he. I don't know. I don't think if he got hurt, they can't replace him. He's that kind of guy, So, we're gonna have to do a really good job of trying to create pressure on him with as few players as possible, and try to find a way to confuse him a little bit. But I think he's a tremendous player. I think when my first year here, we played him, and they had Perkins, who was a really good player. I think that they're getting all the same run. Strengths from the quarterback but the throw game is so much better. So, I think they got a really good offense.
Thank you, man.
Yep.
All right, Coach. Thanks for a few minutes this morning.
No problem. Thanks a lot.